What's going on, everyone? I am just a typical, average American here today to react and learn about Sweden's upcoming election. So, like most people here in the United States, I don't know anything about Swedish politics. But apparently, you guys have an election coming up very soon, right? Like in September. So today, I really want to check out this video here and try to understand what exactly is happening in Sweden right now with your politics and your government and what the outcome of the Sweden's election might be. You know, because this is stuff you never hear about here in the U.S. So let's take a look.
On September the 13th this year, Sweden is set to hold its next election. For the last 4 years, Ulf Kristersson, leader of the centre-right moderate party, has been in charge and backed by a conservative coalition of Liberals, Christian Democrats and the far-right Sweden Democrats.
Huh. Did he say conservative? Coalition of liberals? Does conservative mean something different in Sweden? Because that's like, this sounds like backwards to the terminology and stuff that we use in American politics.
Conservative coalition of Liberals, Christian Democrats and the far-right Sweden Democrats. Kristersson and his TIDA coalition ran on an anti...
Yeah, far right Democrats? I, so this is already a little confusing from like an American perspective, because like the way that you guys define your political parties and your political philosophies, you know, right, left, conservative, liberal, it seems to have different meanings in Sweden, which is interesting.
the far-right Sweden Democrats. Kristersson and his TIDA coalition ran on an anti-immigration platform, with a particular focus on security, both domestically in the context of a wave of gang violence, and externally in light of continued Russian aggression.
Oh, wow. Gang violence? And somewhat anti-immigration? These are like problems in Sweden I didn't even know about.
They fulfilled some of these promises by radically overhauling asylum and citizenship laws, decreasing gang-related shootings by 60% and pushing Sweden over the finish line to joining NATO.
Oh, and you joined NATO in the last 4 years. I didn't know that. Very recent. Okay. So, this is the current Prime Minister of Sweden. Are people happy with him? This is Ulf Kristersson. Sounds like he's done some things that like he was elected for, and he's had some success carrying out these initiatives. So are Swedish people happy with him or what?
However, in spite of this, things aren't looking so rosy for Kristersson. His bloc has consistently fallen behind by 10% in the polls. The opposition leader, Magdalena Andersson of the Social Democrats, leads by a similar margin in public trust.
So this is the other possible candidate for prime minister, possibly. Also Democratic. So it's all... Is Sweden's pretty liberal, pretty democratic? Or, again, these terms obviously mean somewhat of a different thing. They mean different things in the United States versus Sweden, so... I think I get it, though.
And it looks like the left-wing red-green bloc may actually snag the victory in September. So in this video, we'll explain why Kristersson's government has started to look a bit unsteady, what led to their faltering poll numbers, and whether the TIDA coalition still has a path towards victory.
So it sounds like this is a pretty big election, right? If there's a possibility that the leader, the prime minister of Sweden, might change, like this is a really big deal.
First, some background on how the Swedish parliament, or Riksdag, works. It's largely divided across two blocks. The blue, so-called Tida alliance, which is led by Kristersson's moderate party, and the red-green left-wing bloc.
I did a video recently trying to learn about how the Swedish government works, which is very helpful, but I remember I didn't learn very much about the Swedish political parties or the specific politics and policies, and so this is actually really good. This is definitely something that we don't ever learn about here in the United States. So it's cool to finally learn about this because this is important.
The red-green opposition is spearheaded by Magdalena Andersson's Social Democrats, Sweden's largest party, in collaboration with the Greens and with a tacit support of the centre and the left parties.
Okay.
Out of the 349 parliamentary seats, the Tida alliance currently holds 175 seats, as opposed to the Red Greens' 173, a slim majority. This means that while Sweden has a multi-party system on paper, functionally the Swedish parliament works more like a de facto two-party system.
Huh. Is this how the parties always these are always the coalitions? Like these are basically the two choices that you have? So even with political, because in the US there's only two political parties, Democrat and Republican. And that's pretty much the only two choices you have. And when I think of other countries with lots of political parties, I think, oh, isn't that amazing? You have all these different choices. But if they form coalitions and those are always kind of the same, it's like it's kind of like there's two choices anyway. So I don't know if it's a good or a bad thing, but Sweden is different, but similar in some ways.
As we see it, Kristersson's troubles boil down to three key points. 1. The smaller parties are hemorrhaging support. 2. Sweden Democrats' scandals have tainted Kristersson's leadership. And finally, 3. General
Really?
European economic stagnation.
Scandals? I want to hear about these scandals. What are the scandals?
Firstly, the smaller parties have lost their voters. In order to hold any seats in Parliament, or mandates as they're called in Sweden, a party must exceed 4% of the total vote. Last election in 2022, the Liberals managed to just scrape by with just 4.6% of the vote.
Wow.
This was in large part thanks to tactical voting, or so-called rescue votes, where someone who normally would vote for one of the other parties in the alliance instead voted for the Liberals in order to keep the bloc stable.
Oh, wow. That's not a good sign, right? That's not a good sign if that's what you got to do, right?
This means it can be difficult to pinpoint the exact reason why voters have since fled the party. But if polls are to be believed, they now rest at around 2%, far below the threshold. The core base of Liberal voters have either moved to other parties within the alliance or towards the Social Democrats and the Centre Party. This comes down to the Tida alliance's shift towards the right. As the bloc relies heavily on the Sweden Democrats to pass legislation, it has put the Liberals through a profound ideologically driven identity crisis. Should the Liberals fall below the threshold, it would diffuse the votes of the centre-right, as the Liberals would then receive 0 mandates, and made it very difficult for the Tida alliance to form a majority.
Wow. Swedish politics are complicated, to be honest. And when they say the Tito coalition is moving right, I don't even know if right means the same thing in Sweden as it does in the United States, but okay. So this particular alliance is having some troubles.
Secondly, the Sweden Democrats have proved to be just as much of a liability as an asset to the alliance. They've supported Kristersson's government through a confidence and supply arrangement since the election in 2022, but hold no ministerial positions of their own. Earlier this year, Kristersson invited the Sweden Democrats to form a government together in the next election, which would have been a significant escalation in their political standing. However, though the Sweden Democrats have tried hard to rehabilitate their neo-Nazi past, they've since been beset by a series of new scandals.
Huh? Neo-Nazi past? In Sweden? Yeah, this is this is stuff Americans never hear about.
The party has, amongst other things, been revealed to run a troll farm of accounts on social media, bought 80,000 copies of their party leaders' books using party funds, and then burnt them when they couldn't be resold, and most recently, a high-profile Sweden Democrat had to step down after being implicated in child porn crimes.
What? Oh. Oh my God. Now, I know we're not one to talk here in the US, like with our politicians, Donald Trump, Jeffrey Epstein. We we have the most insanity, the most drama, the most crazy politicals. I know that. Um, but I've just never heard of any of this stuff going on in Sweden. That's a scandal. That's pretty crazy. That will definitely hurt your chances, right? And it should.
Furthermore, during a vote earlier this year, the Sweden Democrats appended a century-old parliamentary tradition called the pairing system. Effectively, if one side is missing a member of the Riksdag due to illness or other obligations, the other side removes an equal number of members.
Wow.
This maintains a balance that reflects the results of the previous election.
Wow.
In other words, if Kristersson is sick one day, Magdalena Andersson or another member of her party would stay at home as well.
Whoa.
During the vote, the Sweden Democrats brought in 2 parliamentarians that were supposed to be paired off, one of which was later implicated in the aforementioned child porn crimes. They did this in order to strike down a proposal on transitional rules for people who had already applied for Swedish citizenship under the previous requirements. The resolution was struck down by 1 vote, but also appended the pairing system and jeopardised the government's ability to pass much of anything. At the same time, the alliance can't afford to lose the Sweden Democrats, as it's grown to become Sweden's second largest party.
Oh, wow. It's very interesting to see what are like the most popular political parties in Sweden and what they are and some of this drama. Wow, scandals.
Thirdly, Sweden is no exception to the general European economic malaise that has held the continent back since the pandemic. In certain areas, Sweden has done quite well for itself. Inflation is under control, GDP growth has been buoyed by a booming tech sector, and Sweden is set to benefit from the EU's digital sovereignty push. However, it's also battling unemployment at 8.5%, among the highest in Europe. The budget deficit is growing and the welfare system is under strain.
I think anything I've heard about Sweden has generally been very good. Certainly economically speaking, you guys are you're a smaller country, but very successful. Um, but it sounds like all of Europe has had some financial problems the last few years, and everyone's kind of recovering from that, and that will affect how people vote. That makes sense to me. So,
In other words, whatever metrics have improved, many Swedes aren't really feeling it right now. Furthermore, incumbents globally have underperformed over the past few years, leaving Tida to fight an uphill battle. That being said, a loss is not yet guaranteed, and the Red-Green Bloc has also struggled in opposition. Magdalena Andersson, who is still the most trusted leader in politics according to polls, has slowly been losing support over the past few months. Furthermore, forming a stable coalition will be no easy task. The Left Party, formerly named the Communist Party, recently demanded to be allowed into the government with ministerial roles in exchange for their support, a sharp shift from their previous deal. This has put Magdalena Andersson in a tricky spot. Depending on the results of the election, she may need the support of the Left Party to form a comfortable majority, which the Centre Party has outright refused.
I mean, there's a lot of interesting things that also. This is where politics in Sweden are really different from the United States, because in the United States, we really do only have 2 parties, really. You guys have coalitions, but it's made up of, like, 4 different parties, 8 different parties, where you have to work together and do favors or sign to make things work to form a majority. It's a lot more complicated and difficult in a lot of ways. So that just shows me how Swedish politics maybe is just a lot more complicated.
Over the past month, this has become even more difficult as the Left Party has been roiled by an anti-Semitism scandal, which saw 25 members expelled for celebrating October the 7th, amongst other things. For decades, Sweden and the Nordics more broadly have built a reputation for
I mean, in the United States, you like never hear anything negative about Sweden. So this definitely like humanizes you a bit, but yeah, some of these things are not good.
Stability, prosperity, and a strong welfare state. But this election cycle has cast some doubt on this view. Whether the Red Green Bloc snags a victory or the TIDA alliance hangs on, what remains clear is that the era of quiet, consensus driven Swedish politics may give way to a new, far more turbulent era.
Wow. Wow. Is Swedish politics like getting crazy? Like, are things really changing? Regardless, I went from knowing like nothing about what's going on in Sweden to understanding a lot more, and that there's a lot of uncertainty around this election and like what the political parties need to do, some of the scandals, who the next prime minister is going to be is by no means certain. So, yeah, this was very interesting. It's, again, stuff that you never hear about here in the US. So this was good. Anyway, if you enjoyed this, feel free to give this video a like or leave a comment, especially if you're Swedish and you understand all of this, or that'd be cool to hear your thoughts on all this stuff. And if you're interested in more videos like this, feel free to subscribe for more. And until then, thanks for watching, and see you next time.